I'm at the mine shaft. I've never been here before. But they've got an arcade, so I've got to count up and get ready. At the mine shaft, it sounds like a pioneering excavate. Where pioneers were back in the Trailblazers. This was after the Pilgrims during the Wild Wild West. So it's the Renaissance era, and then the Pilgrimage, and then, I could have that wrong, but then the Wild Wild West came after both the Pilgrims and the Renaissance indefinitely. And the Indians might have been the first people ever. It's between them and the Africans, but we're unsure because dinosaurs were before them, and probably Bigfoot was around during the time of the dinosaurs riding on pterodactyls. No one can disprove that. So earlier we were talking about viruses and how they're embedded and asymmetry and then assembly. In factories, there are assembly lines, and then that's kind of how an atom within a virus would be seeing product go in and out. The product is actually itself the virus. And then we're talking about walls and dampening. And this wall over to my right is sort of like the wall that we were seeing earlier, but it's more infringed. I hate when people say the word cringe because I think I'm really cringe, but the message that I'm saying is like something equivalent in the Bible. Jesus said that everyone's going to hate you, and Jesus was a perfect person and they all hated him. That's why he got disciples. That was in order for just to have some people who didn't hate him. But back to the virus, the board that we saw earlier, checking, make sure it's not another tombstone. Holy cow, this would be one you don't want to mess with. Just because I've seen dead animals in the last few days. Also, double checking everything to make sure it's right. Yeah, I don't know, the dampening effect, if you're putting yourself in the perspective of a virus, I was putting myself in the perspective of like my DNA to see like what it thinks and try and help it. The purview of a virus, it would see a wall, but then it has all those interesting interludes that we saw over having the spectacles of wood chippings and pictures on the wall. This is what a virus would be utilizing as the dampening of the wall, secluding the sound off of it, reverberating the sound off of it. It would be able to reverberate the sound off of it and orchestrate stuff that it would like doing, such as replicating. So us looking at a wall, it just looks blank. But that wall that we saw earlier, you know, that had intricacy on it, that's what a virus would be viewing, the same wall we're looking at. But once again, it would be using all those intricate interludes. It's kind of like, why would Medusa change people into stone? Well, she has no choice because she got cursed. Her curse is she changes people into stone by looking at them. Why would a virus replicate itself? Well, because it sees everything as walls. And so whenever it interacts with the wall, it turns it into an intricate interlude and a data faction where it's just more and more likely for it to happen. This is it entering the cell and it replicates itself. And it was a tombstone. But then I just had to double check to make sure and it wasn't a tombstone. And so that's good because just the other day, the guy was driving and then he hit a tombstone and I was in the passenger seat and I got out and I was actually just chewing tobacco. I didn't mean to. I spit on the ground and it was hitting the same area that the tombstone got hit with the tire. So luckily nothing bad happened that night. But literally we just hit a tombstone with the car, and then I got out and sped on it. I've had dirt at the bottom of my pant, so I kind of cleaned them because I had a rag. And then I got my cuffs at the bottom of my pants. And in the system you only get 3 strikes, but they can dig up any amount of strikes and taxes any time that you have not paid a tax. I didn't pay my taxes on my taxes. Let me explain. My tax I did it wrong, and then I still owe like $300 because I filled out my taxes wrong. This has been done like 3 years in a row because I keep filling out my taxes wrong. And it's not funny because that means that I have 3 strikes in the court system. That this is things that they can use to throw you in jail for no reason. So those are my 3 strikes. I'm out. They could also use jaywalking. They can use I kicked a pole the other day. This was then for tobacco to fall down because it was a tobacco dispenser pole. Extinguisher pole. They have these things, and so I kicked it, and I only did that for it to fall down into it because it was stuck in the pole. So then the police came, and that would have been a strike. You know, you can get strikes for jaywalking, speeding, and if the Democrats don't like you, they will send the federal police in, and that's going to be even easier if the police of the state are defunded, because then they won't be on call, and they'll get the federal to go searching, and they'll get a picture of you. And so what I just described was like 6 strikes, and so this is like my life. And if each of these are just like petals of strikes, I'd be gone for multiple life sentences. It's not a big secret for the Democrats. They want to get the defunding the police so that they can bring in federal police to regulate and do stuff that they choose, like arrest people who they don't like. What we can do to combat this is make the states' governors say there are no longer FBI or any federal police allowed to come into the state. And this is scary because they actually have been doing this, running through each state through DC. The FBI is home base in DC. Anyone who was in Washington, DC on January 9th, it was at the Capitol, you were getting thrown in jail and picked up from your house and taken in by the federal FBI Bureau investigators. But this will be like forever. That's what they want to do. That's their goal. And it's a little inside secret. Planet Earth is that we don't understand it yet. Just as like there's fiber optic cable poles being put up, and then there's fiberglass being used instead of telephone poles. And that's just like Aragorn said to the ghost, "Now be free." And all their problems were solved and they went free. I'd like to do that to a virus, is say, "Be free," and have them go into a water park and not infest. When the soap hits the ground and the grass is already granule, it now enacts like a spider cobweb, forming a symmetry. This is actually very much when they say resistance is futile, going against the grain. Things that are hard to comprehend because they're not as obvious, or just because you missed the moment just before. The moment just before I hit this record button, the rain was coming down, and you might notice that, or you might not. However, if you didn't notice it, and then you saw that there was wet on the ground, and the wet on the ground isn't getting filtrated down into it, well, the ground has been clogged because the rain had oversaturated it that hard. And so the filtration system has been clogged. Now this can be true with not only water, but of sound, and a damping effect, where if I was surrounded by these covers, or the cover, I mean would, knock on wood, that doesn't happen, getting trapped inside of a box. The sound is dampened. The sound would be dampened in a noise cancellation system. And we saw one wall behind me. If there was one wall on top of me, that would be the second damper to a closed system. The system not being closed when it's open, the reverberation is able to filtrate out the reverberation of the Doppler effect when it's sound. But if it was contained, like water only being able to fall downwards because of gravity, then the damping effect of the clog under it would be resistant. It would be going against the grain, and so it would get stuck. And that's what a puddle is. But with sound, the gravity of sound isn't pushing it down as much as the force out from my vocal cords are pushing it outwards. There's a Mortal Kombat character named Sindel, and you can see these purple waves coming out from her mouth, and those are used to kinematically shock people. In a disillusion, well, it's not a disillusion unless it's a virus. You know, if there was like a light and the light had a opposite effect where it was going against the grain, it would have a negative image. I don't know if you've ever gone into like a photo room, a red room, where they're like having the pictures get not dilated but sequenced into the development stage where it turns into full color. You like put it in water and you make sure everything is red around it, like infrared perhaps. And then there's x-rays, which was made by Roentgen. That's besides the point. I think a virus has trouble seeing, so everything to it is like being dampened in the imagery. It's seeing everything as like a negative image instead of just like the clear light image. It's like black and white and propagating offwards. And so with the propagating offwards and Medusa, you can have a different thing where her only ability is to make everything turn into stone, when if, well, knock on stone, if you turn the stone, her ability where it projects out from her eyes, if you put her inside of a box that is a mirror, well, she can't turn herself to stone by looking at her, but she would not be able to turn anyone else into stone if she was contained inside of a mirror box. And why is it mirror? I guess it wouldn't have to be a mirror box, but the mirror, it cancels out the effect for her to turn a thing into stone. So if she saw like a ant or something and she looked at it, it would turn into stone, and she could use that to get outside of the box by breaking the ant through the box. But that would be a damping effect if you put Medusa inside a box that was all mirrors.